All right, everybody. I finally listened to you folks. I've been going through the journey of the perfect EDC, and I've got some great EDC knives. By the way, hit like and subscribe. But a lot of I'm trying to find one that has enough tools. I never liked the Swiss Champ because I'm like, oh, it's just too big and bulky. I did get it, and I have used it quite a bit, but it is very awkward to hold. It's like your hand just doesn't. Once you get past a certain width, it feels weird to hold something that's this wide, but not. If I had a fixed blade knife, it'd fit my hand like that. If I was holding a handgun, that's what it would. That's the right grip. Turning it sideways, and now your hand. To me, it's very awkward to use. Sometimes it's just kind of weird. But it has all these things that I do like. But then it has, a freaking fish scaler, wherever the hell that is. There's a fish scaler. It has the magnifying glass, which has come in handy a couple times, but and I do like that it has the inline screwdriver. But to me, it's been a bit lacking. So I had been carrying my Swiss tool Spirit X. I got rid of my MX. I gave that away, and I've been using the Swiss tool X because I like the blade better. It has a longer blade. It has a better grind. Yeah, it's two-handed opening instead of one, but it's just a better blade. And there's not that little hook thing that's part of the blade that uses it for one-handed opening that gets in the way and also makes it harder to sharpen. And the blade is a good bit smaller. So this has just got a much better blade for slicing and doing work. So I have been carrying that. And this is by far, I think, the best multi-tool that I have. I would say, yeah, there's aspects of the Leatherman Arc. I do like the fact that it has Magna Cut, and I do like the fact that you can sit here and flip it around and open it and close it, one-handed if you have to, but it's just not that big of a thing. I love the Roxxon Flex. Got nice spring-loaded pliers, replaceable blades, and I love it because you can swap out your tools. So I've got a whole bunch of extra tools in a drawer. So if I'm going somewhere where traveling out of the country, but I want to go on multi-tool, maybe we're going to go do some motorcycling or backpacking. I want to have a multi-tool with me, but I'm in a country that will not allow this because it's a locking blade. Well, I can come in here, push that lever down, and I can wiggle that blade out and put a blank spacer or put a saw or one of the other tools in there, a pair of scissors, whatever you want to put in there. So you can configure this based on, compliance of where you're going or whatever your mission is. So that's pretty cool. But I ended up carrying this more often than not because this just was a little awkward to use. I did try this one for a while. I forget which one this is. This is the older Wenger style, even though it does have it's now owned by Victorinox. And I do like that it has the inline Phillips screwdriver and things like that. And I do like that it has a locking blade. Although the lock, it's a little weird. It's in a weird spot, and it's easy to activate accidentally, and it does kind of jam into your fingers depending on how you grip it. But this one, while it has pliers that open up, and you can have in two different settings. So you can have larger, smaller. I didn't like the pliers as much, and this one doesn't have a file, and it doesn't have a hacksaw blade, and it doesn't have a saw. So I ended up not carrying it as much. And everyone's telling me, go and get this one, which is what we're actually here to talk about. Go and get the Handyman. And I'm like, well, how are they going to call it a Handyman when it doesn't have a Phillips screwdriver? That's probably the most common tool a handyman would use, at least in the U.S., is a Phillips screwdriver, and that's the one thing it doesn't have. Well, there used to be one that had that. It was the identical knife, but instead of the corkscrew, it had the Phillips head, and that was called the Craftsman. It's been discontinued forever. You can find some used one on eBay, but you can't find any new ones anymore. I've looked. So I said, look, I'm going to get this, and I'm going to go with the advice of my viewers who have said, just get that. You can use the can opener as a 2D Phillips screwdriver, and in a pinch, if you're in the garage working on something legit, you're going to go grab your proper screwdriver and tools, right? You're not going to use your Swiss Army knife. But you're out and about, and you had to tighten something or loosen a screw or whatever, it'll work. It's well supported. It's thick enough steel. It'll be good. All right, fine. I'm going to give it a try with the understanding that if I need to, I'm going to take one of my other sacks and use it as a donor knife. I'm going to take it to Old Town Cutlery and have them pop the scale off, drill out the rivet, and start to drive it through the other side. And then Once it clears just that one, they can pop this out, take the screwdriver off the other one, slot that in, and then take a new rivet and drive it in. Because if you take it all, then the whole thing's going to come apart. If you pull that out, all the springs are going to fly out. But if you use the new rivet to drive out the old rivet and you don't let there get any gap for a spring to pop out, it'd be very easy to push a new rivet in. They could rivet it up and then put my scales back on. So I'm like, that's my backup plan. But so far, this has actually worked. I've used it a couple times. And this has, to me, the proper tool set. I love my Deluxe Tinker, but it didn't have pliers. You know, that's the problem with Victorinox. They have like 300 different knives and variations. But I could not find one that had everything that I want, but unlike this, only what I want, right? So what do we have on this? We've got your can opener with small flathead, but really a 2D. Phillips is what people recommend it for. You've got your bottle opener with wire stripper and a flathead. You have your pliers, which I use all the time. You have a pair of scissors, and the scissors are actually better than what you get on the Swiss tool Spirit X. You know, these are good quality, and the spring shouldn't break, whereas these sometimes do, but it's easy to replace. But notice how that only opens a little bit. So if you're cutting paracord or anything larger than just paper, it's not really that good. The quality's there, it's just the design. This is a much nicer design, and you can open that up and get paracord in there and make a much easier snip. It's less work and it's just more efficient. You have your proper wood saw. You have your file, which is softer on this side and then more aggressive on that side. And you've got a hacksaw bit if you had to cut a bolt or something like that. And then, of course, you got two blades. You got your small pen knife, and on the opposite side, you got your normal spear. And that is just a bit more comfortable. I know it's only a few millimeters in depth difference, but that once your hand goes from a certain, and you open, it just becomes awkward and it wants to twist in your hand. That still feels fairly decent. I can get a nice grip on that and do some cuts without it wanting to torque and twist in my hand. This starts to torque and twist in my hand. The backspace tools are pretty much the same. Corkscrew, which I've got a little flint fire starter thing in there. You've got some other items. What do we got? You've got small screwdriver. There's a chisel for scraping and stuff like that. You got this hook, which is actually surprisingly useful. I use that for a bunch of things, tightening shoelaces, just grabbing something and hooking and pulling on it, where trying to grip it with your fingers or something might be not conducive to that. And then, of course, you got your awl and reamer. So that, to me, I'm carrying this more, you know, it's going to come down to where am I going to be, what am I going to be doing? You know, if I'm just going to be out and about, this is probably what's going to be sitting in my pocket. If I was to go camping or going to do something where I'm like, you know what, real scissors real pliers for really grabbing something and doing some work. I don't know, if I was going, let's say, off-roading on an ATV, or if I was to get a dual sport bike, you know, whatever, doing something like that, I'm going to carry this. Because this, I'm more likely going to need a real pair of pliers to tighten something, or wire cutter, you know, do something like that to do some more real work. And obviously, that pair of pliers is going to far exceed anything that I can do with this. Although I will tell you, my Mustang one time, when we went up to get Mr. Muggles, my golden retriever, we made an overnight trip up to near Louisville, Kentucky, to go to the breeder. And on the way home, my entertainment system was on the fritz in a 22 Mustang Performance Pack. And the only way to get it to reset is to pull the battery. I don't have any tool set with me. And I'm like, wait a minute. Hold on. I can MacGyver that shit. This was just big enough to grab the nut on the battery post and unscrew it so I could pull it off for 30 seconds, put it back on, fix the problem, drove home with my entertainment system working. So you can get things done with this. You know, if you're pulling a splinter or doing something small, it's perfect. If I think I'm going to go somewhere where I'm going to be doing more real work, then I'm going to grab the Swiss tool. But very happy with it, you know. It's everybody's been suggesting it for a while. That's what you need, you know, based on all the knives I've reviewed and what I said was important to me. They're like, go get the Handyman. And I'm like, oh, but then never Phillips. I was like, oh, fuck it. $76 or whatever it was on Amazon, 2-day shipping. I'm like, you know what? Let me go get one of these and let me see if it does the trick. And honestly, it's all the things that I want on this other than the Phillips. That is obviously going to be a better Phillips. I like that it's inline instead of on the back. It would be cool if this had that. But for its size, it has everything I want. And there's literally nothing on here I don't want other than the corkscrew. Now, the only good news is it lets me keep this little ferro rod so that if I had to, in an emergency, start a fire, I can do that. Now, I know that they have ones that can take the paste plates of the toothpick or tweezers. But honestly, then I'd be giving up one of those. So here I can use this to hold a jeweler's, there's a bunch of little tools out there that they sell. And basically some people just use the corkscrew literally just as a place to hold that tool that you can buy. So I guess from that perspective, it's fine. The couple times I needed just a small Phillips screwdriver, I'm like, you know what, let me try this one. And it does work. And the tip's pretty well supported, and it's pretty good, tough steel. So I should be able to do, I mean, if I can't really get in and torque something, I might bend it or something like that. But I don't know. We're going to see how this works. But I listened to you all, and so far I am happy with it. So there you go. Quick watch check. What do I got today? We got our Liv GX1 from Liv. It's Swiss chronograph. They're not expensive either. These things are only like $550 or $560. It's awesome. It's quartz, but it's a nice chronograph with tenths of a second. Go watch my review on that. I got some really nice Liv watches, but this is one of them. It's a bit big. It's a big boy. It's 45 millimeter, but I like it. So there you go. Some knives, some multi-tools, a little bit of watches. But thanks for the suggestions. I did go with this finally. I do listen to people occasionally. And in this case, you all were right. This is a great little knife. And as long as I don't think I'm needing like really heavy duty pliers, which, how often do you really need that when you're out and about? This is what's most often in my pocket. Yeah, it would be nice to have a locking blade for those times if you had to use it to stab or pierce something and not have to worry about it, going into your fingers. But it is what it is. If you want one tool to do everything, there's going to be some corners or cut or concessions that have to be made. It's hard for something to do everything equally well. In order to do one thing well, you're giving up another. This seems to be the best balance. I've got a ton of pocket knives. I have drawers and drawers full of pocket knives. But honestly, these three and maybe my Delica 4, those are the four most common ones you're going to find in my pocket. Right now, this is going to retire that. It's going to be this, or if I need like a real blade, it's going to be one of my Spydercos or, something like that. That's a proper, real fast open, good hard use, stabby, slicey blade. Maybe a bug out, something along those lines. But 9 times out of 10, I'm reaching for one of these. So thanks for the suggestion, and we'll see you next time.